you have a place for someone to be hosted at your Seder table, we can help you find someone who would like to join you. So you can let Rabbi McCarroll know, you can let me know. We are here to take names and make some good matches. I'll also remind you of that initiative in memory of Joyce Feinberg, a member of our congregation who was slain at the Tree of Life Synagogue. Her daughter-in-law said, 2 for Seder. That is how we combat anti-Semitism. So consider also making 2 places at your Seder table for someone who isn't Jewish, who someone doesn't yet know the ways of the Jewish people, who someone who doesn't yet understand what we're all about. That is the best way to build bridges. And again, if you have space and you're looking for some guests to host that way, we can certainly find some terrific guests for you. Also in the spirit of welcome, it is such a pleasure to welcome back our congregant family, Lior and Anna and little Avshalom. They have spent much of the pandemic back in Israel, and now they've returned to Holy Blossom, their second home, and we're just thrilled to welcome you back. Also a welcome to Rabbi Elise Goldstein of City Shul, and also a rabbi of Holy Blossom Temple, and Baruch Siena, an educator in town, and someone who has had a great hand in this Sidur Pirchei Kodesh. Welcome. And a very special welcome to Anna Kislanski, who is the leader of the Reform movement in Israel. She is a friend of Holy Blossom Temple. She was with us before the pandemic, and now at such a critical time for Israel. Really, it's remarkable, Anna, that you have made time for us, for traveling to be with us, and to teach us what we should know about what is happening on the ground in Israel and how we can lend support. Please, bevakasha.
Shabbat shalom, ערב טוב. ויקהל משה את כל עדת בני ישראל. Moses then convoked the whole Israelite community. With these words, our parasha this week begins, and it is read this Shabbat together with the last part of the book of Exodus, the parasha of Pekudei. Moshe's first action to move to the actual stage of building the tabernacle or Mishkan is vayakhel, to gather or congregate, and as is written, Moshe gathers the whole community of Bnei Israel. This coming Saturday night will be the 11th Saturday night straight in which we, in the Israeli Reform movement, just like in the weekly parasha Vayakhel, we congregate as members of our movement to join in the protests and demonstrations held throughout the country. Each of our gatherings opens with prayer and Havdalah, because we, as liberal religious movement, believe in a Jewish and democratic state. We believe that just as we bring communities together, we must gather together, the entire community of Israel, and protest against the current coalition's attempt to weaken the judicial authority in Israel, thereby subordinating it to the government and thus eliminate the checks and balances that existed in the state. In this week's parasha, the children of Israel all respond to the call of gathering, and all present themselves with their contribution and gift to the tabernacle. And let come every man whose heart is lifted up, and every one whose spirit is willing. It is the same with us, the congregations and members of the Israeli Reform movement, alongside hundreds of thousands of members of the entire nation. We stand up, carrying the Israeli flag in our hands and a prayer in our hearts that this gathering, the largest protest in the history of our young country, will bear fruit. And for that same reason, on Sunday, I will be speaking at the rally organized by the local and Israeli Jewish community at Nathan Phillips Square. rallying for Israeli democracy. In our passage, Moshe calls the leaders the wise of heart to assist in conducting the work. There is delicacy and softness in this phrase. The quality required of the artist Bezalel ben Uri, who oversees the construction of the tabernacle, is the wisdom of the heart. A person with a smart heart is a person whose hands all the money and valuables that the Israelites contributed to the tabernacle can be entrusted with an open heart, and trusted to know how to extract from it the tools that will become a work of thought. In the state of Israel, there is no shortage of leaders who are wise of heart, from the president of the state, who is trying with all his might to promote a compromise plan and prevent a rift in the nation, to the protest leaders, high-ranking men and women who served as commanders in the army and senior positions in the government offices, business leaders, artists, writers, and former commanders in the police, all of whom are wise leaders. The streets of our small country, which until recently we were so proud to call the only democracy in the Middle East, are full of them. But it's precisely the members of the government, which is aggressively promoting legislative changes in the country, who lack wisdom of the heart, a heart that knows how to distinguish between good and evil, between what is more or less important to take care of, and between what is appropriate and inappropriate. What is happening now in Israel affects our movement in many ways, and therefore we are protesting. The Israeli reform movement is relatively young, having started in the 1970s, but it continues the founding principles of the reform movement from more than 200 years ago, that we as Jews cannot afford to be indifferent. Today in Israel, our vision and actions reflect our deep commitment to the state of Israel as the state of the Jewish people, to its democratic values, and to our Declaration of Independence. As a Zionist movement, we look at our country with love and pride, and we ask ourselves every day what can be done to improve Israeli society and make our country an even better and more worthy place than it is today. Our approach is maintained by cultivating a network of over 50 Reform congregations throughout the country. In the last decade alone, we doubled the number of our communities and thus exposed a larger Israeli public to progressive Judaism. And all this while we are fighting for the legal basis to recognize our rabbis and synagogues, for the right to pray our way at the Western Wall, for the right to access government budgets, and also for the basis of our values, not to give in to the corruption that so often accompanies the Orthodox religious establishment, to fight manifestations of racism in Israeli society, and to strive for a just society, pluralistic and democratic. We who are proud of the state of Israel and strive every day to make it a better place, are currently under attack. After years of significant achievements for our movement, it seems that the extreme voices in the government have reached a real achievement in bringing about the fact that in the coalition agreements between the Likud and the ultra-Orthodox parties and the extreme right, a true expression of evil will be leveled against us. The Orthodox parties reached disturbing conclusions upon joining the government that will affect Reform conversions, the right of any Jew to immigrate to Israel, and to harm the judicial system through far-reaching changes. All this leaves many communities without legal protection and representation in the highest courts, including women, members of the LGBTQ community, and Arabs. This Shabbat, on which we will complete the book of Exodus by reading Parashat Pekudei, is also called Shabbat HaChodesh, or Shabbat of the month, since this is the last Shabbat before Rosh Chodesh Nisan starts in the coming week. In the Bible, Nisan is also called the first month of the Hebrew calendar. At the beginning of Nisan, which symbolizes hope and renewal, we will feel the times of spring and joy in preparations for Passover. This holiday, also called Chag HaCherut, the holiday of freedom. It expresses above all the need to preserve individual freedoms and human rights, this basic right we are now fighting for in the State of Israel. In Israel's Declaration of Independence, on which the democratic system in the State of Israel is founded, it is written that the State of Israel will be founded on the foundations of freedom, justice, and peace, in the light of the vision of the prophets of Israel. May the arrival of the month of Nisan, bring success to our prayers and actions for Israeli democracy and for freedom, justice, and peace. Shabbat Shalom.